Start the recording. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us again for our second in our webinar series. The topic of this one is going to be Race Studio 2 analysis user interface. I took a poll. We took a poll at the first webinar, and overwhelmingly analysis was something that everybody wanted to talk about a little more. So we'll bring this around to here and kind of building a base of just the user interface and understanding some of them. Some of you have been users for quite a long time. I'm going to throw in a few tips and tricks that you may or may not know about as well. So it's beyond even just the basics, and we'll put it all together. Okay. So let's. Looks like we're getting most everybody signed in and ready to go. So we'll start with some. We'll start with some introductions and of the folks we have here helping me out. And why we do that, I'm going to bring up a poll and launch the poll of just the equipment that you use. If you would go ahead and do that while we're talking about our folks we have co-hosting today. Robbie, a couple of questions for you. One, how long have you worked here at AIM, and kind of what your background is as far as what we do here, and then down the road, as we get back to racing, hopefully as sooner than later, where will we expect to see you the most often out at the tracks?
I've been working with AIM for a little over 10 years, and I guess my primary focus is technical support. I'm here to help everyone that has problems or questions with hardware. And I do, the last couple of years I've been doing a lot with the off-road market. So if you were to see me at the track, it was probably at Best of the Desert, Score, Works, but then we also do karting events from Challenge of the Americas, SCUSA events, as well as and the newly formed Champ Off-Road is on my ticket this year as well.
Very cool, very cool. I'm a huge fan of the off-road side as an ex-participant myself, so happy to hear that. Cameron, how about you? What you've been around here for a little bit. How long have you been here? What's your main task, and where can our users expect to see you once we get back racing?
So kind of similar to Robbie, I've been here for a little over 10 years. Main focus, same thing. We do the technical support. And you'll mainly see me at the IndyCar and Road to Indy stuff, along with the Global Mix-5 Cup that runs with them as well. Then we'll do the big NASA Nationals, SCCA runoffs, other SCCA majors around on our East Coast side, and SCUSA, Supernats, go to that one, and other kart races that we just need some support at. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We also have Mike James, the owner of AIM, here sitting in on this as well. He'll be answering questions in the questions and answers and taking care of a few things that way as well. I'm Roger Cadell. I've been working here for about 10 years as well, and sounds like we've all been around about the same amount of time, right? And I do all of the online videos and of course the on-site seminars that we can't do right now. So so I'll be focusing mainly on this webinar series, and then I love to get out to the track when I'm able to, and I go to a variety of different places and different types of racing wherever I can help and fill in as well. So thank you very much for the poll. We'll end that one. We'll have another couple more here in just a little bit as well. So the next thing that I would like to talk about is the questions and answers. We've got a panel here. We've got a chat box. Love that everybody's chatting back and forth and having a good time. That's what we're after here today. When you have some questions and answers, ask them into the question and answer panel box. You can press the button on the bottom of your screen, I believe, and post your questions for this particular topic in there. That's going to help Robbie, Cameron, and Mike answer those if needed, or make sure that I see them so we can hit those as well. And towards the end, we're going to have a question and answer period where and I'm going to ask you for future topics as well. So keep that in mind. Keep your questions in the questions and answers box, and then keep them focused on the one that we're on this subject here. We're trying to keep these subjects as tight as possible so people can review them later and get good value out of them from our YouTube site once the recordings go up there. So and we're gonna have tons and tons of these. So we'll continue to to bring these webinars to you, including some of your questions that you're plugging in there. So keep that in mind. I appreciate it. And the let's see, the next thing is I want to share. The questions and answers will be coming up here in a little bit. Let me share my Ray Studio 2. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is dig into a little bit of just this user interface of Ray Studio 2 analysis and some tips and tricks. The other thing I noticed during our polling from the first session was that the experience level and everybody, the bulk of people, well more than 50%, were either brand new or were within a year or two of just starting to use the products and the software. So what we're going to do here in these first few webinars is we're going to build some basics, and then we'll slowly work our way up to even more in depth and more complex questions and answers once we dig into these webinars. So what I wanted to show was, okay, you've opened up Ray Studio 2, you've downloaded it. Well, what's some good tips and tricks, just some basics of the software, and then what is some good tips and tricks to make this software work better for you? That's where we're kind of going to go today. So the first couple, and by the way, I'm gonna go through these fairly quickly, but don't worry, of course we're recording this. You can always go back and watch it on YouTube and pause it and try some different things on your own computer and say, okay, I see what he did there, and work that into your normal work process with Ray Studio 2 analysis. So the first one I want to talk about is one that a lot of folks don't know about as much, and I'm just going to scroll back and forth a little bit. But the first one I want to talk about is a couple of really interesting and really valuable keyboard shortcuts. We're using this software typically in the field on laptops, and maybe the laptop is not that large, as far as screen space, and screen space is everything. You're trying to see as much as you can see with these these squiggly lines. And the first keyboard shortcut I'd like to show you is if you just hit your space bar. When you tap your space bar in Ray Studio 2 analysis, the measures and lapse toolbar that's over on your left edge, if you're leaving in the standard spot, just goes away. And you've taken your main window and you've opened it up to the full width. And then just as quickly, you can just reach down and hit your space bar again, and it just brings it back and puts it, so you can select channels, do all the different things you need to do. So that keyboard shortcut of just tapping the space bar is a valuable tool. The second one that's semi-related to that is the control space bar. The control space bar allows you to get rid of the test lapse toolbar across the bottom really quickly, and then control space bar again, and it brings it back up. I do see a question there real quickly. It's are the things being shared today, space bar, the keyboard shortcuts, are they applicable to Ray Studio 3 as well? Right now, Ray Studio 2 analysis is the only analysis program we have. And as far as I know, even in the rest of Ray Studio 3, there are no keyboard shortcuts that I know of in the software at all right now. So everything we're going to talk about today, the keyboard shortcuts certainly on the first step here, are only applicable to Ray Studio 2 analysis. It is my guess that when Ray Studio 3 analysis is released, that you will have keyboard shortcuts, and some of these will match that as well. Some old habits of what we've been used to in Ray Studio 2 will be pulled over to Ray Studio 3. Okay, so those are just a couple of keyboard shortcuts to hide that measures and lapse toolbar and the test lapse toolbar if you want to get those out of the way real quickly. If you can't remember those, pardon me, I find some people that maybe they've tapped the space bar on accident, and then I get a call, and my measures and lapse toolbar are gone. The way that you find those back, if you don't remember the keyboard shortcuts, is if you go up to the View pull-down menu, and then down here at the bottom of the View pull-down menu, you've got your three things that you can turn off: the toolbars across the top, and the two that we just chatted about, the measures and lapse toolbar and the test lapse toolbar across the bottom. If you uncheck those here, it will go away as well, and you can just come back to the View and check that and bring that back. So if you accidentally, that's how, one of the ways I found one of those early on when I was using the software is I bumped the space bar in accident, and then that was gone, and I had to dig around and try to figure out how to bring it back. So that's the keyboard shortcuts I wanted to talk about today. The other one that makes this software much easier to use is what we call views. And the views are up here in the upper, let me turn on my little pointer so we can all see this a little bit better. follow the red dot up in the upper right-hand corner, the views are these 3 buttons that are across the top. And it's what I kind of call, it's got 1 line, 2 lines, and 3 lines. It's kind of the easiest way to see it. But what it is overlapped and then tiled. Yeah, I'm sorry, mixed and tiled. And and right now we are in the 3 dots, which is tiled. Every of the channels that you have active into the main window, every one of those gets its own space when you have this 3rd one selected. So if I come over and I add steering to this, steering just gets popped in the middle, and there's nothing on top of each other, right? And you can add as many as you want, and you just keep on adding them, and you see more and more channels. So if I turn steering back off, you can very, very handy tool that way. The next one to the left, we'll just go across the other way since we're there. The next one is called the mixed graph. The mixed graph allows you as the user to mix and match and put graphs in the area of the screen that you want to see them. In this particular case, I've got in this upper window, what we'll call window number 1, because we've got 2 different windows here. I've got my gear position and my RPM showing in the top one, and I've got speed and pedal position, throttle position on the bottom one, or number 2. And the way that you change these or recognize that is over here on the left edge. When we went into the mixed view, one of the changes you saw was these numbers showed up. And these numbers are signifying where in the windows you're looking at it. So if we've got gear position is right here in number 1 right now, if I click on that one time and turn that to a 2, gear position now is here at the bottom in the 2nd window. Okay, I could put it into a 3rd window if I wanted to, just by clicking again. It's basically a 6-way toggle, rotary toggle. And if I just keep on clicking gear, there's 3, then it'll go into the 4th window, the 5th window, the 6th window, and then when I click it one more time, it pops up and it's back to number 1. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click that down one more time and get it into the 2nd window. Let's say we wanted speed up into the upper window. Here's a little bit of a keyboard shortcut for you, a little trick that makes this a little bit easier. Right now it's in window number 2. I could click it, the 4 or 5 times and get it to pop back around. Or your shortcut is, if you just hold down the control key and click it, the toggle actually works backwards. So I just put speed number 1 is up in the number 1 window by clicking it on in just the one time, but holding the control key down to do that. Okay, that is the mixed view. You can have up to those 6 windows, and you can have multiple channels on top of each other. Some people like to have certain channels combined together, and maybe it's throttle position and brake pressure, and those complement each other really well for a visual effect of looking at your data traces. So that's pretty handy. The next thing that that we can chat about is these little check boxes that show up along the side. You'll see them; they'll kind of come and go with different views. And those check boxes, kind of intuitively, you would think that is telling us which channel has been added to the main window. But in RayStudio 2 analysis, those check boxes are actually to turn on and off the scaling. So in this case, I've got my RPM and my mile per hour up here with the 2 traces that I have. And if I want to just turn off the RPM scaling, I could come over and just click the little checkbox there. And now we've only got scaling for 1 of them. So when you're in the mixed view like we are, the little check boxes are turning on and off the scaling. Of course, clicking on the channel name itself is what adds it to the main window. And then the numbers move you around to different, being able to put it where you like it. Okay. And the last one is what they call overlapped. And the overlapped view it's a remnant from, as I understand, it's a remnant from when we first started using RayStudio, and when we had maybe not so many channels, and it was the way we first presented the data. And it wouldn't be so bad if you had an RPM channel and a water temperature or a cylinder head temperature for a cart, and that's all you had. But boy, this gets pretty busy, and it's almost difficult to read any of the data traces. So I typically don't use overlapped view hardly at all. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back into what we call the mixed view, and move on to our next topic that we're going to talk about, which is resizing everything. Once you kind of get your stuff all set up, and what we're doing here is we're building a screen that you might want to use for your data analysis, and at the end we're going to save it as a profile. So we kind of got things kind of set up the way we like, and now we want to make sure we're getting the most use out of the real estate screen, screen space that we have. So one of the things you can do, and I see a lot of people don't realize you can do this or don't take the time to do it. If you take your cursor and you go over to this line in between the measures lapse and the main window, it'll change to a double-headed arrow. And at that point, you can drag this left and right and bring this over. And our job is making this main window as large as possible, because that's where we do most of our analysis work, visually at least. And so we can pull that over where we're kind of taking up as much space here and leaving the room that we need to see what we need to see in the measures and lapse toolbar, but yet making the window as big as we can. So we did that on the measures and lapse toolbar. Now let's go down and we'll do that down here across the bottom at the test lapse toolbar. There's no reason to have this test lapse toolbar quite this big, right? We're taking up space. So if we come down here and we can hover over, oops, missed it there. We can actually pull this one down to till that test lapse toolbar. The individual lap that we have active up here is this lap right here, and we make that a little bit smaller. So now we've optimized the size of our main window in order to see our analysis. Okay, the doing that and getting that where it works is it will make your stuff work very well. The next thing I would do just for fun is I'm going to go ahead and just snap back to our tiled view. One of the things I like to do is I call our speed traces, it's a money channel. It's one of the most important things we teach our folks to look at to help us understand data. Money channels are lap times and speed. And since the speed is a very critical point, it's always on almost every screen I look at, I like it to be a little bit bigger like this. You can jump in between and you can resize any of these windows. And I like my speed to be just a little bit bigger, and then maybe the other ones that are down here that I'm looking, glancing at occasionally, maybe those are a little bit smaller. So make sure that you understand that you can grab these lines in between your cursor turns to a little hand, and you can actually resize all of the windows inside of the window. So that's another cool little tip that'll make things a little bit easier for you. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to chat about is when you open up your AIM software, typically when you first do it, the scaling for speed, for your GPS speed, which a lot of us are using a lot, is scaled. I've got it scaled here from 0 to 200, but the default scaling is 0 to 320. And you end up with this speed trace that doesn't have a lot of detail. It's just a little bumpy line that's running across. So I wanted to chat and show you a couple ways to rescale this fairly quickly. The first one, it was kind of the longer way, and I'll show it, and then I'll show you a shortcut. If you hover over this channel that you want to scale, just hover over it with your mouse and right-click. And what that does is it opens up this measures information box, and because you opened it from the measures and lapse toolbar, it opens up that channel ready to be adjusted, right? The information about that channel and things we can do with it. We can do a lot of things, and we'll talk about this in this box in detail in a future webinar, but one of the ones I wanted to show you here is there's a plotting scale right here. So if I could come in here and I could replace that with 150 miles an hour as the max instead of 200, and we'll get rid of some of this dead area above the trace that is just taking up space that we don't use, right? So if I just apply an exit, you'll see in real time that that scaling has changed. Okay, that's kind of the long manual way, but you can scale to a real exacting number, which is kind of nice. But the shortcut that I want to teach you guys today is if you take your mouse and you hover on the scale bar of the channel that you're after, just here somewhere near the middle. If you get way to the tip tops, you'll see the cursor will change a little bit, and then towards the bottom, we just need to be out of that area. So I just say hover about in the middle and double left click. And when you double left click on any channel, it does a best fit for any channel that you're using. Okay, that is a huge time saver, and one that as we teach people, and something certainly as I do data analysis all the time, that is a function that I use all the time, and it's very, very helpful and really does speed up your ability to do data in a hurry. So keep that one in mind. Double clicking on the scale bar is a powerful tool. Okay, the next one I wanted to chat about, which will make this nice and clean and easy for you, is the layout of the screen itself. when we ship the software, it comes with this thickness of lines and any other number of things. Let's open up a dialog box that allows us to get in here and set our measures graph plot values. So you can come up and click on the little wrench in the upper right hand corner. There's any number of ways to get here, but that's one that's a pretty easy way to get there. This set measure plot dialog box allows you to change a few things, and I've kind of settled on something that works well for me. That's what I'm going to show you today, but you can adjust it to make it work for however you wish. Here we're going to adjust how this looks. In the first one, we ship the software at a line width of a 2. And for me, it works a little bit better as a little bit thinner line. We can see a little bit more detail. It prints better, you know, if you're ever going to print out some and share some analysis graphs and some other things. So change your line width down a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and apply and exit these each time so we can see the difference real quickly. So let's apply and exit that one. You can see now that the line widths are just a little bit narrower, and to my eye, a little bit easier to see some of those little jaggedy lines and some of the different detail that you're looking for. So that's the first one. Let's go back in. The other one that I want everybody to see, although I like it the way it is set up, is the cursor tag size. We ship the software with large as the default, and I wanted to jump down to small just to show you what the kind of the difference is. And what we're talking about is everywhere your cursor, which is wherever you place it in your software, wherever you've clicked, everywhere it goes across the channel, it's putting this little horizontal line across, and it's the size of that is what we're talking about here by cursor tags. I just changed it to small. Let's go ahead and apply and exit there. And you can see that the size of that has gotten quite a bit smaller. Okay, some people like that. Let me jump back in and let's take it to the next step, which is of course we can take it away totally, and won't demonstrate that. But the other one is full, and let's go ahead and apply and exit that one. This one here, now I'm just going to drag the mouse back and forth so you can see kind of what's happening. Is wherever that is crossing now, we've got a full width cursor line. At first I thought I would kind of like that. It would make it easy to see exactly, come over here and be able to look at the scale bar and see that that's exactly 72 whatever miles per hour, and and I could see what the RPM was based on the scale. But in the end, that it's a bit much. You get a lot of channels and you're moving that around. There's a whole bunch of lines moving all around, so you may or may not like that. But that's what full means when you click on the measures plot setting and set it to full. I'm going to set that back to large. That's a pretty good compromise. The next one is channel tags. Channel tags are on by default, and what channel tags are is these individual tags here that are showing what value, wherever your cursor is. In this case, it's right here. What is, in this case, it's GPS speed. That's the channel we've got active, and then it's the miles per hour, kilometers per hour of whatever the value of that channel is as it crosses the cursor line. So in this case, 84.1. And my pedal position is 100. My RPM is at 55.63. These are what we call channel tags. If you don't want those there, you have to uncheck that box. Almost everybody I work with really does like to have the channel tags there. Okay. The other thing that you might be seeing in your data that I've turned off right now, we'll just jump ahead over to this side over here. This is called min-max visual. I've got mine as on selected. And on your screen, you might be seeing, when you look at your data, you'll see some little triangles. You've got a triangle pointing up, one pointing down, and one pointing sideways. And those are the minimum values of that channel, the maximum value of the area we're viewing, and the average value of that channel. And it'll be on all of your channels. I put those on to selected because if we open up a multiple lapse, that extra bit of data that's being projected onto your screen can sometimes be a little overwhelming. If you've got 2 different tests and you've got 3 laps open from each of the 2 drivers, that can be a little bit overwhelming as far as the amount of data that's being presented to you. And always is how you set that, and that's the way the software is shipped by default. I've got on selected. I'm going to jump out of here. I'm going to turn this back to
Actually,
large. Go ahead, Rob.
I had a question from the question and answer section. It's pretty close to this. It's about doing rolling averages. So when we have that average function set to display, you can actually zoom in and it will curtail the rolling average. So I was wondering, since you had it up, if you could just pop the rolling average up and
As far as the time compare bar across the bottom with 2 laps?
oh no, when you go back into the settings and
Oh.
set your min max, just so that we can
Okay,
see
I'm
the
sorry.
average.
Okay, line exit. So let me get over here. So here is the, I'll use RPM for a better one. I think where you're heading is the 2921 is the minimum value of the full lap that we're zoomed out to. 6527 is the maximum RPM of this particular session, and 4801 is the average. And what I think you're asking is, if I were to zoom in a little bit, then now it jumps to the side. Let me jump it back over here where it was.
That's
now it's 2965 and 4708 as the average of the RPM for the section that we're looking at.
Right. So it's completely dynamic.
Very much so. It is those values, those 3 values on your channel tags are the area that's in view, not the lap that you're looking at. If you zoom in, it's being adjusted. Okay. I hope that covers the.
Now that was perfect. I think that.
Okay. Let me jump back out. Let me turn those. What I like to do, sometimes I really do want that information. It's very valuable. I'm going to put it back to on selected and show you the way that I would typically do that. Let me turn that off. Now I do not have those triangles there showing the min, max, and average. But if I really want them, I would zoom in and I want to know what my average was, let's say for the RPM. If I click on the channel tag that does not have the triangles next to it, we click on that, and when I select that particular channel, we get those min, max, and averages for whichever channel we're after. In this case, maybe it's pedal position I want to see. The average throttle position for this segment was 73.8%. Of course, a low of 0 and a high of 100, but the average of the area I'm zoomed in. So if you don't want these channel tags to show up all the time, the min-max visuals to show up all the time with your channel tags, you can turn that off, but yet you can still get back to whatever channel you want just by clicking on the channel tag itself, and it shows them. Okay. And then these little triangles, it's kind of a cool, one last little feature to this is, let's say we wanted to get right to this apex, the min speed of that dip. If I come up here to this 43.4 and just double click on that, the cursor will typically jump to it. When I'm zoomed in here, I think with our presentation software, it's not jumping to it, but yours should do that. The 43.4, the cursor will jump right to that, or we can jump to the 110 and it jumps to that as well. So just double click on the on those little triangles and the data will jump to it. Okay. The line widths, well, let's open that one more time and let's talk about the last couple little features that you can do in this box. Show time compare. If I opened up a second lap, we can show time compare across the bottom. It's an automatic process. Whenever you have 2 laps that you open, you're going to be showing the time gain loss between the 2 laps. Most people like that to be turned on. By default, it is turned on. So leave that checked if when you open up multiple laps, you want to see the time compare bar across the bottom. And the last thing here is show with delta. This is when you use the delta function, which is this red triangle over here, which will be a webinar all of its own here coming up soon. A measure tool, right? We can just measure different things within the software. You have some options of showing not how much RPM was gained, but we can also show nothing, which is by default. The slope of the line between the RPM gain or the mile per hour gain or the oil pressure lost, the average of the line or the average not 0, in case you've created some math channels that are setting some stuff down to 0. Zeros in our software is not null. So we're giving you a way to null out any 0 values by averaging not 0. Okay. That's the set measure plot window. Very, very helpful tool. I'm gonna just jump out of it. The way that you get to it is up here in the upper right-hand corner with the little wrench. The other way you can get to it is under options and settings. Settings will get you to the exact same dialog box. Okay. Perfect. Let's take another quick poll and we'll share this one with you when we get done. What I'd like to talk about is your experience level. Go ahead and click on that. It is you can only select one of them. The other polls will all be multiple choice. But in this case, you're out there using our stuff, and this is helping us understand really fully what where is everybody that's attending these webinars, and what kind of levels of future webinars will we be doing. So if you'd fill those out, we'll give that another minute or so. And then the next couple things we're going to go to, by the way, after the experience level poll, we're going to open up GPS. One of the biggest questions I get as you're filling that out, one of the biggest questions I get is how to open up a GPS map and have that side by side with my measures and graphs tool. Because right now this measures graph is nice and it's telling me a lot of things, but a lot of people need to see the GPS, a track map of some sort. And typically people are using the GPS map to view where they're at on the track, so they know, get a really good feel of that. So, okay, we've got
everyone seems to be really impressed with your black background.
Yeah,
you want to do a quick show on how you can change the background color?
I will do that. Actually, it's one of the last things I do before we do profiles right at the end. That's how I've got it kind of timed in. So absolutely, the more we do that and the more I show that, the more people really do like that. So I appreciate the comment. So I'm going to end that polling, and then let's share the results for you. Should be popping up. Hopefully you guys will see it. Everybody is hopefully seeing that. We've got brand new users are about 22%, 12% on 1 to 6 months. Again, fairly between brand new and 2 to 3 years is the bulk of the folks. So thank you for doing the poll. I appreciate that. That helps us as we are moving forward. So, and then the last, the next thing I want to talk about is that as I mentioned, we're opening up the GPS. I've got GPS open down here across the bottom. If you can see down here in the tabs across the bottom of the main window, I've got my test database, which is always open, sitting there, my lap manager, and I can bring that up and select Lapse at any time just by clicking on the tabs. I can bring my measures graph right back up and have it on top and do everything we were just chatting about. We may want to know where we're at on the track, right? So maybe I put this cursor over here, right this slowest corner on the track. And then if I were to bring up the GPS map, we can open the thing, open it overall up here by clicking on the GPS icon. I already have it open, so I'm just going to click on the tab down here. And that is the slowest corner on this particular data that we're looking at, right? And that's kind of handy, but then I have to jump back every time to the measures graph, do some more work, and here we are at the end of this straightaway. Where am I at with that? Bring the map up, and here it is right here. What really is helpful is when we get these side by side, and that's one of the things that a lot of folks really like when we do our seminars, and they can come and take a look at how we set this up for them, and we're going to show that now. So let's talk about that. You have a couple of controls up here in the upper right hand corner, and you've got of course your minimize button for the overall program. You've got your restore down command for the full program, and of course the big red X here at the top. We don't want to click on that one, right? But a lot of people don't recognize that right below that is the same exact 3 commands, and those are commands just for this main window. And this process of getting these set side by side comes from these 3 commands here. So what we want to do is we want to click on this middle one, which is our restore down command. And what that does is it takes all your open windows and puts them into that main window, and now they're just floating. So we can grab these, move them around anywhere we want to. And even more important is we can grab them and resize them. So once you've done that restore down function, you can grab, what I tend to do is just grab the upper corner and pull that up into the up into this corner, and grab the lower right corner, and then size that the size that I want that to be. If you hover over just in the right spot, your cursor will turn to a little 45-degree double-headed arrow. And now you can grab that corner of it, and I'm just dragging it around, holding the left mouse button down. And I'm just going to drag this over to here, and I like my GPS map to be about that size right there. And then make active the measures graph and grab one of the corners and pull it down into the lower right, and then grab the upper left and resize this baby to be right alongside of the GPS window. You can overlap a little bit if you wish, but that is a pretty darn good view that a lot of people like. Now, if I'm clicking and I've just clicked into my main measures graph window, and I'm holding my left mouse button and just dragging it along, and you can see the X over here in the GPS window going along as wherever I click, I'm dragging backwards now, and they are dynamically synced, and they're always working together. So I can drag this around, and now I know exactly where on the track that I am when I see the speed trace or the throttle position, RPM, whatever it is I happen to have on. Okay, that is a very, very cool way of making this work for you and being able to visualize both sides at the same time. The track map and, of course, the measures graph. Okay, so that's how you resize the windows. And then what the next thing I wanted to talk about, and we're going to get down into that dark colors versus light colors in just a second. I want to just cover this quickly. I think a lot of people know about this particular topic, but it is very helpful, which is the fact that of sorting channels and your per lap color. Those two functions are both over here right at the tip top of the measures and lapse toolbar. I do have a lot of users that I chat with that don't know these are here and what they do, so we'll briefly go over them. Number one, we'll talk about here real quickly, is sorting of the channels. The sorting of these channels, the more channels we get in our data systems, the more that we may want to order these in an order that makes more sense to you as while you're analyzing data. And in order to do that, all you have to do is click on the Sort Channels button, and you end up with a dialog box. Now, when you open yours up, I think the very first time you open it up, the Use Data Logger Configuration Order option will be checked. That and these channel values in this panel, there will not be any. So if you run into that, immediately just come up and sort according to user profile list, make sure that radio button has been selected. Then you're going to see all the channels that are available to you, including any math channels that you may have built will be in this list. At that point, we can just come in, and the one that I think I will move down maybe is I've got speed, throttle position, pedal position, steering, RPM, and gear. I'm going to move steering down here to below gear just to show you how easy this works. You highlight the steering channel, and you've got 4 choices. I can either move it to the top, which I'll do, boom, or I can move it all the way to the bottom of the list. I'm not going to do that right now. Or I can move it down 1 step at a time, or up 1 step at a time, but I'm at the top. So I'm just going to click on the move down until that highlighted steering channel fits in where I want it to be in my list. So now I've put it down to below the gear position, RPM, and before my lateral and longitudinal acceleration. So once I get my, and click on another one, right? Battery voltage, if we want to move that one up, put that one up right here. So adjust them any way that you feel like, and then press the apply and exit. And what you'll notice now is steering is over here, is down where we just told it to be, and battery is where it is meant to be. And that this order of channels, the reason that it's a little bit critical is now, remember I opened up steering and it popped open up here, in the second window. Now, if I open up steering, it opens up when you're in the tiled view, the order of the channels over here is the order that the channels open up in your main window. So it's not just a function of making it where I can find the channels nice and quick and easy by sorting channels, but it's also the order that they get applied into your analysis window, which is kind of handy.
Hey, Roger, we had a question. So the sort, will that also change the sort in the math channel window as well?
I do not believe that is that works that way all the time.
I think the
math channels will be sorted any way you wish, but not in the math channel function itself.
Yeah, the way the math channels works is the calculation, the first formula that you have is calculated first, so any subsequent formulas using that have to be below that. So that order has no relation to the channel order.
The math, Robbie just was talking about this list here, and yes, if I'm using master speed in a lockup channel, which in this particular data it was, these cannot be changed. What I maybe the user or Cameron was talking about as well is these identifiers are the channels as well. That order right here is all the channels that are available to you, and it does not change with your sort channels that you did in the main window. So there's 2 different varieties of answers for the same question, right? So these are your channels, these are your math channels, these do not change. Okay, let me cancel out of that. Good question, timely. Now that I have sorted the channels, the one last thing that I want to talk about as far as that piece of it is, let's say we have a second lap we want to make active. I'm going to come down to the test laps toolbar. I'm going to double click on a lap there just to have 2 laps active. I now have lap 9 and lap 10 are active in our window. If we were to zoom in on our GPS close enough, oops, I missed it. There it is. If we zoom in close enough, you've got to get really close. The driver was in the same exact spot. You can see when we zoom in a long ways that the driver, there actually is 2 lines in our GPS data as well, GPS maps. And let me get that back there. And the trouble is now I've got 2 laps open and I'm trying to compare them, and I'm trying to understand which of these 2 green speed traces for speed. I've got one that's 101.2 and one that's 101 or 100.5. Shown over here as well. Which channel is which? It becomes very difficult to see and understand. The per lap color is the solution to that. So if I were to check my per lap color, now all of a sudden I've got a light blue and a purple lap. Doesn't look very good, does it? But I've got these 2 colors. You can change that color real easily, by the way, by coming over here. And let's just change it to a light yellow, let's say. So now I've got a light blue and a light yellow. Lap 9 is yellow, lap 10 is blue, and here's that time compared bar we talked about earlier that we can turn on or off. The blue channel is the blue time compare bar. It's the blue steering, it's the blue gear, RPM. Blue is blue across. That per lap color is boss across everything, including, let me see if I can pick a different corner on the GPS map this time. I can see it a little bit. Yeah, this one will be a little bit better. Including even when you're studying the driver's line through a certain corner, now the blue is the blue line on the GPS map as well. So that per lap color becomes very powerful. My typical way of running the software is if I open a second lap, my cursor goes right up and I turn per lap color on. If I have anything more than 1 lap open, per lap color comes on, and if I close a lap back to a single lap, I tend to go right up and turn per lap color off, and now I can make individual channels the colors they wish, and the GPS map is now can be colorized per GPS speed in this particular case. Okay, that is a quick overview of sort channels and per lap color. We'll get into some more detail of some of those in future webinars if it's been asked. Okay, perfect. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the test laps toolbar across the bottom. Pretty straightforward, pretty basic. Some people that use our software every day leave this on all the time, like I do. Other people like to have that turned off all the time, and we talked about that with the control and the shift bar. But one of the cool things, there's a couple cool things about this bar. Number one, it shows you what lap you're active in. You can change laps extremely easy by just hovering over the middle, anywhere in that box, push and hold your left mouse button. You can see the little cursor down there went from an open hand. As soon as I press my left cursor button, it grabs it like it's grabbing it, like turns into a fist. And then if I drag that to the left, drag to the left, and as soon as I pop over lap 9, I've just changed all my data and I'm looking at lap 9 real quickly. That's a real benefit of that bar down below. I can go back to lap 10 real quickly. I can pull it over to lap 7 real fast and see laps. So it's a very quick and easy way to look at multiple laps, which is kind of nice. The other thing that happens sometimes is if we want to, maybe you're an endurance racer and you have got 50 laps across this bottom. In this particular case, I've only got about 10 or so. But the 8. Sometimes it gets so small in a champ car race or a 24-hour endurance race, whatever. One of the things that people don't understand about this or don't know that I like to share is this bar across the top. You see, there's a slider bar across the top that that's always expanded fully when you first start. But you'll notice right here at the top, down in the lower right corner, you can see that there's 2 little arrows. If I grab the inside one and I'm just going to hover over it, push and hold my left mouse button, and I can now drag it maybe towards the middle or so. Now this slider bar that was full size, you can grab this and now you're zoomed into, especially in endurance racing, again, you can now zoom around and have these be of a size that you can actually select the laps and move them around. So pretty darn handy to be able to zoom in using these little controls right here at the top. And I'll zoom all the way back out to to full width just by grabbing those. Okay, that allows you to zoom in on that test lapse toolbar. That's a very handy little tool. And then the last one of that little piece there, there's these bars right here on the ends on both sides. This one here on the right side, there's a big vertical bar right there, and there's one on the left side as well. If I were to just click on those will move one lap at a time. That's kind of a handy little thing if you've got multiple laps and you just want to see those 2 or 3 laps and just move them, all of them ahead one way. I'm going to double click on adding another lap. We can just use these and we can just slide and grab another 2 laps real quickly, which is kind of handy as well. Okay, those are a couple little tips for that test lapse toolbar that you may not have known, is being able to zoom in across the top and being able to grab multiples and or move one lap at a time with the little elevator bar on the side. Okay, the last one I want to go over as far as the look and feel of the software, and we'll end this with saving to a couple of profiles, is the dark background that Robbie and some of the folks mentioned in the question and answer. The dark background. The software comes to you, it's defaulted as a white background, and I do present often with that, and sometimes when you're inside of a trailer and the lights aren't bad, the light background, which we'll change to in just a second, isn't bad. But boy, this dark background is pretty nice, and especially nice when you're outside in the sun with under a colored tent or something like that. This black background is pretty handy. So think about that. How do I change it? How do I get it to where maybe I have the white background for a second? It's pretty straightforward. We've got a kind of a canned, default based white color scheme and then a dark color scheme. And if you come up here to the plot settings icon, which is this little white icon right here, this dialog box opens up. I'm going to talk about the on-screen settings, but we can in just a quick second. But I wanted to show you here first, though, is almost everything that has a color to it or a background or the shading of the map segments or whatever it happens to be, you can change it for on the screen individually. You can change it for on the screen or in prints. So you've got this option of my cursor right now is white, right? We can see that the cursor is white. With the white background and having a black cursor, sometimes it hits on the track map segment vertical lines. Maybe you want to change that. So let's change that to maybe a red cursor. Okay, and I'm just going to apply it just so you can see it. I just changed that cursor alone. That's what this entire upper half of this box is for, is to change individual elements inside the software if it's something that works for you. Tied to the cursor in this particular case is the cursor is red, but also my channel tag text color is red. It's tied to the cursor color, just so you know. So, but tinker around with that. You can change any of the different things, the map colors, the map background, the shading of map segments is at what level. You can change a lot of that stuff. There's much more of them even down farther. So that's the upper half. But what most people use is right now I've got it set default black base colors is what I've got set right now. If we simply click on the set default white base colors and apply all this, and then I'm going to jump out of it just so we can see it. It does not change the actual trace colors that we have set, but it does change all the rest of the background. So when you do that, you may have to come in and instead of the GPS being a light green, you might want to change that to a nice dark green in order for it to stand out. So this is the white based background. It does not change the GPS map. GPS map is always black. And again, we'll change it back to the black base colors. Just come up here and black base colors and okay. And we're right back to where we were, except I changed my speed trace. So I'm going to change that back to a light green so we can see it a little bit easier. And there we go. The dark, most of you are by default, the software comes with the white background. So most of you are probably going to want to change to the dark, but yep, that icon right there and set it up. Okay. But you will have to change the color traces don't change to a lighter color just as you went to the black background. Okay, now I want to close this with, we've kind of got our screen set up the way we want. Profiles are such a valuable tool in our software that saves virtually everything that we set. I mean, all the way down to the line widths, to the colors, to the size of these windows. If we have resized these to, if you have a GPS map opened and sized correctly the way you want, black background versus white background, all of these things are set and saved in a user profile. Let's create one with the black base settings, and then we'll make some changes. We'll save one there, and then we'll jump between them and show you how easy it is to kind of close out this this webinar before we jump into the final questions and answers. So if I've got this set up and I like this, we've spent the last bit of time here setting up our screens. So if we come into the user profiles now, the user profile tab over here in the measures and Lapse toolbar, when you first open yours up, you will not have any just like this. And we want to save one. We want to save this view. This view is not based on this test. It's based on any test you open with this computer. So keep that in mind as well. So user profiles, we click on the little add profile button, create new user profile. And I'm going to call it, I'm going to call this one home. And I'm going to call it dark, home dark. We're going to create a home light one, and then we'll show you how easy it is to swap back and forth. So so here we're going to click on new user profile with all these current settings. I believe that's the default that it sets to, but make sure you do that. If you do a different one, it'll go back to completely the raw settings that the software came with. So new user profile with all the current settings you have set right now, and click on OK. Okay. It's been added up here into the list. Up here in the very top, you'll see that the user profile that's being applied right now is home dark. And so you kind of know where you're at. Let's change. Let me go back to my measures graph. Let's change this to a user white based colors. Let's close the GPS, let's say, and maximize this. These are all settings that are going to be remembered. And let's go to a per lap color, just so and make it maybe a dark blue, something we can see a little bit easier. Okay. Maybe this is a view that maybe you want. Maybe we turn off steering, gear, and just have these 3 channels. Maybe this is something you might want to go to at some point. Let's save a user profile. User profile, let's save a new one, and we're going to call it modified home and white. Give it a name that means something to you, right? New user profile with all current settings, and let's click on OK. Okay. Now, let's say we're working away, and maybe you store 6 or 7 of them, maybe one with a split report, and one with a channels report on some vehicle health issues, or whatever it is you're after. You save 6 or 7 of these the way you like to look at data the most, and then I can just come back in and I can double click right here. I can hit Control-1, or I can click on the little double-headed arrow, which is the load user profile. So I'm going to do that, and what it will do is go right back to whatever the settings I had when I had it set up as the way I saved the first one, and then my modified home white one. If I just double click on that, we can, boom, it pops open, and now you notice that it has saved the per lap color setting. It has saved the white background setting, the channels I had open. Virtually everything you had set when you actually save that user profile is done. Let me just reload into the dark one, and then we'll start to tidy this up. Okay, that is saved. I just saved a couple of profiles real quickly, but setting those default light and dark based colors is a powerful tool. I really like the dark ones when you're outside in the sun a little bit. They really jump out at you a lot better. Maybe you like them all the time. A lot of people do. And then we save those to profiles. That's just an intro to profiles. We'll have a deeper webinar on those upcoming. So. Perfect. I think what we're going to do now is we'll open it up to Robbie and Cameron, if you want to take a look, and maybe there's a couple more questions in there that we haven't gotten to, and we'll I'm going to reshare the presentation material real quickly. Oops, there we go. Jump back to Ray Studio if we want to open them up. But Cameron and Robbie, is there any questions that pertain to this one that we can answer right now?
I think one thing that got brought up a couple times is the Zoom feature that you're using. Okay. So we explained it a couple times, but maybe if you want to go over it for everybody really quick, just to.
Perfect. There's 2 zooming in Ray Studio analysis. Let me bring up the measures graph just so it's there. If you make this your active window, click anywhere into the measures graph side, and then you can either use your up and down arrows to zoom. I'm a big fan of the scroll wheel on my mouse. That's the one I tend to use. The one kind of important part about the zooming in the measures graph, we'll talk about the GPS in a moment, is it zooms around the cursor, right? So if I put the cursor here in the middle, the graph is going to zoom around that. The cursor doesn't move. The graph, we zoom in and out on the graph, right? So if you're all the way zoomed out and you wanted to know something more about this second apex corner down here, put your cursor there, and when you zoom in there, it keeps that in the wherever the cursor was in the window, right? So if you were to zoom in way over here, had the cursor here and zoomed in, now all of a sudden that corner you're after is off screen. So make sure, just a handy little tip, put your cursor where you want to zoom in and then zoom in. It'll give you a better shot of it being in the screen. One question that came up earlier that I noticed on Facebook about this topic is, now that I've zoomed in, maybe that corner back here is the one I really want to see. How do I move around in the window? When I'm zoomed in, you can take your mouse down here across the x-axis, and I can just grab this and drag this left and right by holding down my right mouse button and put that in the middle of the screen so I can see that particular corner, which is kind of handy. Okay. The one other kind of cool little trick that I'd use a lot, and another reason I use the Lapse toolbar, is, let's say, let me zoom out and let's pick the slowest corner just for fun, that one here. Let's zoom in on that one a little bit just to see what's going on. If I'm in this corner right here and I want to know, yeah, I'm looking at lap 11, but what about 10 and 9? How about some trending? How did the driver get back on the throttle on this little short corner right here? I take my eye, and my eye stays looking at the data, and then I take my cursor down at the Lapse toolbar down below, and I just push and hold my left mouse button, and I'm just looking at individual laps real quickly. This one here, you see the driver started to get after the throttle and then had to get back out of it and get back after it. And I just dragged back and forth on different laps to see if there was a particular lap that he did really well, or laps that he didn't, and then that's teaching me and allowing me to see a lot of data real quickly, and then be able to say, okay, that one there, why did he have to get out of the throttle? Let's dig into it. Was he faster or slower in the middle of the corner? Did he just get over anxious, a little too greedy? Whatever it happens to be. This little trick about keeping your eye up in the main window and dragging this Lapse toolbar laps back and forth is a very quick way of looking at how you approached a certain corner. So a little tip there. I'm gonna zoom back out. Now, if we want to zoom in and out of the GPS map, which I think, as I read real quickly, that was the main question, you have to make that the active window. You have to click here first, and then you can zoom in and out by using, again, the up and down arrows on your keyboard or the scroll wheel on your mouse to get to a specific corner. That's how you zoom in and out on that particular part of the software. Okay. Robbie and Cameron, you have any other questions that we can jump in and out of?
Yeah, the track map creation, basically the colors that denote the turns and the straights, how to switch between distance and time base, and then how to actually get those colors to show on their graph.
Let's do a brief talk about track mapping and these segment colors across the top and versus GPS mapping, right? The segments here across the top are based on when you generate a track map in the software. We have to do track map new, and let me jump out of that real quickly. It would be map and then new. This is how we use this function. We'll have entire webinars on this. These track map segments are not the same as the color changes on the GPS map. It's two different things. And so these little segments across the top are based on however we segment this track. And the software does it for us, and we can take them and remove them if we wish. But these segments here are for split reports and a couple of other functions in the software. So we may want to still do those, but a lot of people like their location to be just on the GPS map itself. Okay. That's how these segments have gotten built, and how we can adjust them is in that function. The other question you just talked about was this x-axis across the bottom, distance versus time. Some people like time across the bottom. I'm a big fan of distance, almost always, time occasionally. But right now I'm in distance, and the way you change it is your cursor comes up here to the top, and there is a little clock. I lost my little annotate little bar. Let me get the little spotlight back. This little clock right here it's just a toggle. You click it once. Oops, I missed it. You click it once, and now you're looking at your time, your lap data based on how much time since you had left the start finish line. So if I'm clicking right where I'm at, we are 106.76 seconds since we went past the start finish line, since it triggered for the lap that we're on. And you can see that down here below as well. If you look at the number between 1 minute and 1 minute 10, so that 107, well, I'm sorry, 106 is right there. So we can look at it in time, or we can look at it in distance. Distance is the preferred method of analyzing, especially if you're going to bring up multiple laps, because now the both drivers are at the exact same spot on the track, and regardless of how long it took them to get there, which makes analyzing exit speeds of corners and when you got off and on the throttle much more consistent. If we shift that to time, now all of a sudden you see these, let me go to per lap color just so we can see the two. You can see that there's a shift in the data, and there's a shift in the data because the driver, we're basing it on time since the start finish line, not distance, and you end up with these little bit of shifts. So I don't use time very often. Time is my best time. My suggested time you use time as the x-axis is standing starts and times when you spun off the track and you're sitting still. When you're in distance mode and you did a standing start or something like that, you end up with all of the data is compressed, and since you're looking at it in distance, you can't see what happened while you're sitting still. That's really the best time to go to a time base. Normally 95% and 98% of the time when you're looking at your data, you're going to be in distance base across the bottom. Okay.
Awesome.
Anything else? Did I miss something?
Well, so it looks like some people are maybe looking for some best practices or a library of your profiles that you currently use. Is that something that you?
We're going to do a profile, a specific one on profiles. Let's leave that for an additional webinar.
Okay, perfect.
And we're, at that point, we'll also talk about, which is up here on the file pull down menu, is importing and exporting profiles on how to save them. Okay. Anything else, Robbie or Cameron, that you see?
I think it's coming along quite nicely. There's some things.
Get back to the questions and answers. If you have, now would be a good time. If you have any comments or questions for future webinars, now would be a great time to throw them into the questions and answers box. And we'll use those for upcoming seminars that we'll chat about. Let's go ahead and finish up with the presentation, and while you guys are typing in some of your questions and answers as well. The one last poll that I'd like to do as we kind of get ready to move on is future webinar topics, kind of the same exact thing we're talking about here. There's a poll for you that these are multiple choice. What I'd love if you would click on is what topics would you like to see for future things. We're going to read the questions and answers that we're saving up here, but I'd also love for you to check on topics that you might want to see, and that will help us understand what's coming in the future for these webinars. I'm going to go ahead and kind of close this out. We're going to leave that poll going for a little bit so you can everybody can go ahead and select the ones they want for a bit. Hopefully it's not covering up the next couple of slides. Not a big deal. A couple of things that we just want to kind of close with. There's additional training and support. Obviously, these webinars are going to be going on at least through the end of May and probably beyond as we're in these crazy times. So other places that you can get some training and support from AIM. I always like to say we're really a customer support company that happens to sell racing electronics. We're Cameron and Robbie both mentioned that kind of where they're going to be at, where you might be able to find them at the track. We have quite a few other folks that are always out there with our Sprinter vans, at the track there to support you. So keep that in mind. Look for us at a track near you. The LearnFast e-training video site on YouTube. These webinars, as soon as we get done with them, these new webinars will be on that page, 2 new webinar videos added each week. Plus we have over 60 other ones where we talk about some of the stuff we talked about today. I mean, sort channels is on this list, per lap color, views. Some of the stuff we went over fairly quickly today are already out there on the videos, the YouTube video site, where you can get even more detail about those. So keep that in mind. Visit that the YouTube site constantly. Here's a little bit of contact information as we're kind of closing it up, and I appreciate lots of people are voting on and I'll pop this up in here in just a second for you to take a look at it as well. Here's some contact information. Again, the YouTube site. Is there, as I close out what we're doing here, Cameron, Robbie, Mike, do you have anything else you would like to add here towards the end? Any other questions, if so, or just kind of closing topics?
No, I appreciate everybody coming. Sorry, Robbie, speak over you. And I see a lot of great questions popping up, and I wish we could answer them all. And I'd like to get a lot of future good topics. I can only type so fast as can Robbie and Cameron, but great stuff, and I appreciate it.
Me too. Robbie, Cameron.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it looks like we've got some really good topics to go over in the future. Really good ideas in there. So
yeah, this is all content driven by you guys. So what you're interested in is how we want to gear these up. So the more you guys participate in letting us know what's of interest to you, the faster we can like start moving the direction of this webinar to suit your needs.
Absolutely. Perfect. I thank our co-hosts Robbie and Cameron and Mike that they are very busy answering the questions and answers. I look over and I see the tab here says that they had provided 73 answers to questions, and we still have 21 more that we're going to use to fill in future webinars. I look at the poll. I've shared the results with you that you probably are all seeing right now. Looks like yeah, again, the most common topic people are wanting to see is data analysis, and some of the stuff we were talking about in there was also mentioned by the questions and answers and in the chat. So I appreciate everybody coming. We're going to continue to do these every Tuesday and Thursday. We're going to wear Robbie and Cameron out, and we're going to get some other AIM staff in here as well because that'll be great. And we're lining up probably next week's will be Cameron and Robbie or other AIM staff helping us out doing these things, and then we'll start having some co-hosts from AIM dealers, noted AIM experts and driver coaches, and we're going to bring people in to specifically talk about some of the ways they use AIM software and hardware to help racers and enthusiasts with using their AIM products. So those are going to be interesting. We'll probably start those in about 2 weeks as we put all this together. So again, thank you very much. Thanks to the co-hosts. I appreciate everybody coming. This will be up on YouTube probably within an hour or so. And so if you missed part of it or you want to look back at some of the very, very fast details we went through on some of the stuff, you can go back and review it there or give me a holler and we'll go over some stuff as well. Thank you all for coming again, and we'll see you on the next one, which is Tuesday. Tuesday. Yeah, geez, I got it wrong. Tuesday, April 7th is the next one that we'll do this coming Tuesday. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next one.